Sigewinne may not be as exciting as Clorand, but she still brings quite a unique and new playstyle to the game that I think is worth discussing. If you don't fully understand her kit yet, you've come to the right place. Let's get into it. And of course, this starts with Sigewinne's role in the team, obviously very important. Sigewinne is a Hydro Bow character who ascends into HP percent. She heals the team while also doing significant burst damage. Let's start with Sigewinne's normal attack. Since she is an off-field character, you won't find yourself using these an awful lot. But hey, they do still have a silly gimmick. While she's charging her charge shot, there will be little hearts coming out of her bow that do hydro damage. This is quite useless, but it's pretty cute. Then we get into Sigewinne's skill. This is going to be her source of healing. Sigewinne will spawn a bubble that can bounce on enemies up to 5 times, and when it bounces, it will heal the entire team except Sigewinne. Don't worry though, because when the bubble disappears, Sigewinne gets healed for 50% of her own HP. This is already a good setup for a Furina team, and her being Hydra just makes it better. I will dive into the topic later though. You can also hold the button to charge up the damn thing, allowing it to heal for 5% more and doing 5% more damage per growth? That makes sense. This stacks up to 2 times, so not a great increase now that you think about it. When she uses the skill, she also spawns 2 droplets that give her 10% Bond of Life, and when the Bond of Life is cleared, it will give you 5 energy for every 2000 HP of the bond. Now we are going to talk about her burst, and her burst is quite a unique one. It's not a buff to your team, it's not healing, it's damage? What? Okay then. So it's going to give approximately 6 ticks of damage in 2.5 seconds. It will also absorb the droplets from her skill that give her Bond of Life. So hey, there's that. The burst is actually pretty damn good to do damage, and its range is respectable. I would just have never guessed in a million years that Sigewinne's special gimmick as a healer is just her doing an absolutely insane amount of damage for a healer. I'm talking like Xingqiu's DPR, you know, on a full-blown healer. This is on her signature weapon, and it's a big DPS increase for her, but what? I think this is also ultimately her downfall, but we'll get into that later. Time for Ascension passives. The first one will give her 8% hydro damage bonus when she uses her E, and she'll get 10 stacks of a buff that will buff your off-field character skill damage. This is oddly specific until you realize this is straight up just telling you to run her with Furina. But other characters can take advantage of this too. Again, gonna expand on that later in the team section. Then for the second one, it gives Sigewinne a healing bonus based on Bond of Life your teammates have, which seems very strange given that the characters that will have the most Bond of Life, being Clorand and Arlecchino, don't even want to be healed, and literally can't be healed. So this is a very strange passive. I'd say for talent priority, do her skill first. It's the source of her healing, which you are going to be using her for. Next up, the burst, for its oddly respectable damage output. And then the normal attacks can be entirely ignored. And then, like I always do, cover the signature weapon. Sigewinne's bow is a unique one. It has a low base attack, and naturally has an HP substat. It also grants a frankly stupid amount of HP from its passive. It'll give you HP when you use your skill, increase Bond of Life, or if you heal. When all stacks are gained, Elemental Burst gains 28% extra crit rate. There is only one other bow character that scales with HP, being Elan. She does not have any Bond of Life and cannot heal, so most of the stacks are not even obtainable for Elan, because she doesn't have a Bond of Life and she can't heal. So this means that the weapon is not the greatest for general use, but for Sigewinne, it's her signature. Of course it's going to be good. If you made it this far, you seem to be interested in my content, so subscribe and like if you do. Now we're going to get to the part where I believe Sigewinne completely blunders, which is her teams. Sigewinne has a good baseline. She's Hydro, that's great. A healer, a necessary part of modern teams. She also has good personal damage, so what's the issue here? Well, she's got competition, and the competition is brutal. Let's see what Sigewinne's best place is, shall we? Well, her kit seems to be quite fond of Furina, by buffing off-field skill damage and also healing team-wide. But what team really focuses on Furina's personal damage? Furina's a buffer, and her damage is a bonus. Well, One of the best free unit damage teams I can think of is Raiden Double Hydro, where she is one of the main contributors. Sadly, however, Sigewinne's personal damage is not on the same level of Yelan, and while she does allow for the use of Kazuha over Xianyun or Jean, making her better in AoE, the damage loss in single target is quite significant. This is only made worse by Sigewinne's burst taking nearly 3 seconds, not even taking the animation into account, so she has long-ass field time. Another strong option for Furina's personal damage is a mono Hydro team, where I can see her replacing Kokomi. You have no dedicated on-fielder in this team now that Kokomi's gone, which means you can have Yelan take advantage of her own buff, with Sigewinne also chilling with it. This is going to be better than putting her in a Raiden Double Hydro team. It has the AoE of Kazuha while doing more damage as well. But is it better than Kokomi? Some would argue the flexibility in the rotation does make it better, but Kokomi has some good damage herself, so it's up for debate, but I prefer Sigewinne here. And then again, speaking of Kokomi, how does she compare? Well, she has less healing per tick on her E, but it heals team-wide, so I give Sigewinne the win there. And what about the burst? Well, Sigewinne's is way shorter while doing similar damage, just not as much. So again, I have to give Sigewinne the win here. But I can't say Sigewinne's a better unit. Kokomi has access to tools like Fling Tales of Dragon Slayers and Tenacity of the Millilith, while Sigewinne does not, and Kokomi's E is more useful for the application rather than the healing. This makes her better in Freeze and Bloom teams. So in conclusion, Sigewinne is going to be better in Furina teams, but outside of them, Kokomi is most likely just going to be better. Now it's Constellation time. C1 is going to allow her bubble to bounce 3 more times, and every time it bounces, it gives her a stack of her A1 passive. This effectively doubles her buffing, and has a big effect on her total healing per rotation. But her healing was never something to put into question. So I think the main benefit of this Constellation is the extra Hydra application you get from having the bubble last longer. C2 is an interesting one. It will have Sigewinne create a shield when she casts her skill and burst, turning her into both a shielder and a healer. But again, I don't think that is the most important part, because it also makes these abilities decrease the enemy's Hydra resistance by 35%. This makes her an even better Furina support. C4s don't have a great reputation, but for Sigewinne, it's going to double her ultimate duration, meaning she is going to do way more damage. This also makes her better in the teams where she replaces on-field Kokomi, because now she can effectively on-field herself. And now there's her C6. When Sigewinne heals, her ult will gain a crit rate and crit damage buff of 0.7% and 1.6% per 1000 max HP Sigewinne has, up to 20% and 110% respectively. These are incredibly weird values because they don't cap out at the same point, but the crit rate buffing capping around 29k HP, and the crit damage capping at around 69k HP. But regardless of this, with her C4 combined, Sigewinne will turn into a good main DPS, so good for her. Sigewinne is definitely not a bad character, but she's not someone I would recommend anyone to pull. She does not provide much value to most accounts due to how her kit was constructed, but again, she is not a bad character. If you like Sigewinne, you'll 100% be able to find value in her, but if you don't, you can be happy knowing she isn't some broken support that you need to get. That'll be all from me. Peace.